Today, I'm going to give you a framework and a tool that will help you modify your adventure to make it easier, to make it happen faster, and probably to make it even better. So I'm really excited to share this with you. I'm going to share my screen right now and show you what this tool is. This tool is called Scamper. And as you've probably guessed, it's an acronym. Scamper stands for a couple different things. It stands for substitute, combine, adapt, modify, put to another use, eliminate, and reverse. And I used Scamper when I was planning my journey on the Via Appia. And so I'm going to share with you how I used it, and this will be an example and a model so that you can use Scamper for your own adventure. So first of all, substitute. You're asking yourself, can I replace? What are the tools, the activities, the actions, the equipment, the courses, whatever else it is that you're using in your adventure, and what can you substitute out? Is there something else you could switch that would make it even better? So for example, I rode my bike on the Via Appia from Rome to Brindisi, as I never stopped talking about. And I thought about substituting a motorcycle or a moped instead of a bike. So that would be an example of substitute. The next is combine. Like, what can you combine with your adventure that can make it better or easier or faster? Another example, when I went on Via Appia, my plan was really just to explore the archaeological sites, the historical sites, talk to as many people as possible, learn about the route and the history and the culture. But I also was able to combine that with touring the regional wines and learning as much as I could about the local cuisine through personal experience, which meant actually just tasting a lot of local dishes, which was a lot of fun. So I just combined that with this bike tour. Adapt. What can you change if you need to, or based on circumstances beyond your control? This adaptation will help you overcome obstacles. It might help you deal with the threshold guardians. And I'll give you an example of adapt. So part of my bike tour went through a lot of remote areas, and there weren't necessarily hostels or even hotels or Airbnbs that I could stay at. And so I ended up doing a lot of spontaneous camping, a lot of asking permission from people to pitch my tent on their private property. I one time slept in the school. So that was an example of adapting. What can you do if something that you're expecting isn't there, something changes? How can you adapt? So I came there prepared to camp, and I ended up doing some camping. How can you modify your adventure? And this just means changing something in order to take advantage of certain situations or to make it better in some way. So I looked into modifying my bike tour by continuing on past Brindisi, which is where the Via Appia ends. I thought about continuing on past there and going to Lecce, which is a beautiful, very important town in southern Italy. That's a little bit south of where the Via Appia ends. In the end, I didn't make that extra trip, and I regret it to this day. But I did do another modification that I'm glad I did. So it turns out, as I was doing my research, there were places where there was some disagreement among scholars and archaeologists about just where the Via Appia actually went, where the route was. And there were other places where there were probably traces of the Via Appia, but they're on private property, and I simply would not be able to travel those sections. So what I did was I modified the route. I picked the most important historically significant areas, the places I wanted to see, places that I knew the Via Appia went through and I knew I could reach it. And I just then connected the dots and made a route that kind of worked, and it pretty much was faithful to the route of the Via Appia. There may have been some minor exceptions, but that was the modification that I came up with in order to make this adventure happen. So think about your adventure. How can you modify it? What can you do to make sure that you get to where you need to go and do what you need to do? How can you put parts of your adventure to another use? And for example, I thought about, after I did the Via Appia, I knew the route, I thought, well, maybe I could turn this into a regular tour and I could lead it, and that could be a new business opportunity. Another possibility was writing a book about the experience, or at least publishing an article or two about it. So think about your adventure. How can you put it to another use? What can you do to make your adventure more exciting, more interesting, better, easier, faster? Next part is eliminate. Now, there are things I probably should have eliminated on my trip down the Via Appia, and I'll definitely do this if I make that journey again in the future. I'm going to eliminate some of the sections that were just really boring and tedious, some places where it just went through ugly industrial areas, some places where there was just heavy, heavy traffic that was not fun riding a bike through and actually was kind of dangerous. So think about how you can eliminate your parts of your adventure, just delete stuff that's it's too complicated, that's going to create problems for you, and you can streamline things this way. Finally, the R in Scamper stands for reverse. Really simple experience or example. What if I simply rode, instead of riding my bike from Rome to Brindisi, what if I rode from Brindisi to Rome? Maybe that would have changed the experience in some ways. All roads lead to Rome. But how can you reverse your adventure? Think about the major task you're trying to undertake and ask yourself, what would happen if I did the opposite? What would that look like? What would be the benefits of that, if any? And as you reverse it, you'll start to get there. So this whole process of Scamper, you're not going to make use of every single letter and change your plans, but it gets you thinking creatively, it gets you brainstorming, and chances are you will come up with one or two great ideas that are going to improve your adventure. So go ahead, use it, and I'll see you at the next lesson.